In 1587, 115 English men, women, and children landed on the wild shores of the New World. 3 years later, every single one of them was gone. No bodies, no signs of a struggle, just a ghost town left behind. This map shows the uncharted wilderness where they landed. Sent by Queen Elizabeth, the colonists settled on Roanoke Island in modern-day North Carolina. The expedition's leader, Governor John White, brought his pregnant daughter, who soon gave birth to Virginia Dare, America's first English child. Governor White had left behind a settlement of families, husbands, wives, and children, vulnerable and isolated on the edge of a vast continent. This illustration shows the established, heavily populated Native American village of CROATOAN nearby. The colonists were encroaching on occupied territory, and as their supplies rapidly dwindled, tensions with the local tribes turned hostile. Facing starvation and potential attacks, Governor White made a desperate calculation. He would take a ship back across the Atlantic to secure emergency food and weapons from England. To save the colony, he had to leave his own daughter and his newborn granddaughter behind in a dangerous land. He promised them he would be back with heavily armed supply ships in just a few short months. The survival of all 115 people now rested entirely on the speed of a wooden ship. As White sailed east, the clock on Roanoke started ticking. When White finally reached London, he hit a wall. Queen Elizabeth issued an absolute freeze on all English shipping. Nothing was allowed to leave port. England was locked in a bitter war with Spain, bracing for the impending invasion of the massive Spanish Armada. Every available vessel was drafted. White was physically trapped. He watched powerless as his promised timeline of a few months dragged into an agonizing 3-year delay. For over 1,000 days, he paced the docks, left to wonder if his family was starving to death or being actively hunted an ocean away. 2 global empires clashed over European dominance, and in doing so, they blindly sealed the fate of ordinary people waiting desperately on a tiny island in the New World. In 1590, the geopolitical gridlock finally broke. White secured passage on a ship and immediately sailed back to Roanoke. Look at this historical map showing the English ships approaching the barrier islands. As White navigated these narrow channels, the shoreline was completely silent. There was no smoke rising from the chimneys and no families waving from the beach. Stepping onto the island, White's men found the settlement abandoned. But the houses hadn't been burned or destroyed in a raid. They had been carefully and systematically taken apart. Yet highly valuable heavy cannons and weapons were simply left sitting in the dirt. Most chilling of all, a thorough search of the area revealed a complete absence of blood, bodies, or any fresh graves. The physical evidence didn't point to a frantic massacre. It looked like an organized, deliberate migration of an entire society. Before leaving 3 years prior, White had established a distress signal. If the colonists were ever forced to flee under the threat of violence, they were instructed to carve a cross into a tree. White's men scoured the ghost town. They found no cross. Instead, as seen in this historical etching, they found a single word carved deeply into a wooden post of the fort's palisade: CROATOAN. CROATOAN was the name of a barrier island 50 miles to the south, which was home to a friendly local Native American tribe. White prepared to sail south and search for his family. But before his ship could weigh anchor, a massive, violent hurricane slammed into the coast. The storm severely damaged his ship, forcing him to abandon the search and return to England forever. Historians and archaeologists are still debating the fate of those 115 people. Were they quietly slaughtered by rival groups? Did they drown at sea trying to sail home on makeshift boats? Or were they peacefully absorbed into the CROATOAN tribe to survive the harsh winters? The Lost Colony of Roanoke remains America's oldest unsolved true crime mystery. It is a dark ghost story of extreme isolation, brutal timing, and an entire community swallowed by the wild. Let me know your theory in the comments, and hit subscribe for more historical deep dives.